Oh, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Having a beer here in a little cantina in a Mexican place in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. I told you I was gonna go to a mystery place. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Ah, gotcha. Well, anyway, anywho, how's everybody doing? Ah, it's hot. Caballero, niño de vino. Uh huh. Yeah, we're almost done with the Pluto series. I hope you guys like Pluto in Aquarius. Now, I'll be doing Pluto in the 11th house to wrap it up tonight. And then, possibly by late evening or tomorrow morning, I'll finish Pisces. Pluto in Pisces, which in a way is kind of like a retreat because Pluto in Pisces is the Piscean age that just closed. Uh, I have the birth chart of Jesus Christ. There are many birth charts that are circulating about Jesus Christ. The one that I got directly from the Vatican. And it has Pluto in Virgo, Uranus in Virgo, sextile in Neptune. And my hair stood up. Wow. Makes sense. The polarity point being Virgo. Um, we're going to see that again on a different evolution on the spiral. The Piscean age will be this second time around more reflective of the golden age that Plato and Aristotle talked about. They thought that it was going to be during this Piscean age, but it wasn't. The polarity point was expressed through Virgo, which is earth, mutable, and it deals with poverty, hardship, sacrifice, and scarcity. And that definitely was the reflection of our world this past 25 years. When we come back to the Piscean age, Pluto in Pisces will reflect a prelude to the golden age when that age does return again, 26,000 years from now. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see what the download is, Well, what kind of information is going to be downloaded. Chulería en pote. ¿Y qué te pasa? Un muchachón, parece. Un muchachón, parece. Then them Capricorns, the older they get, the younger they look. Yeah. I feel good. I feel good. Considering that I was living through a nightmare these past 2.5 years with all the stuff that's been going on. And even though I won the war, we've won the war, we won the war. There's debris and much reconstruction There's some residue, but that always happens in any war or battle. Uh, yeah, there's still people still doing the shit, but the cycle closed, so it's going right back to them. And another person just died, and two people, including the main male and the main female, in this are about to be institutionalized because they're losing their minds, because all of their spells are going back to them, and they think it's me, and it's not me. It's that I'm protected, so it bounces and it goes right back to them. They don't understand that there are certain people you cannot do witchcraft to. These people think that they're magicians. A real magician will know who to do this to and who not to. So they really bury themselves. Uh, I will no longer talk anymore about it. Uh, the moon, let's talk about the moon series. The moon series, I gotta talk about the moon. Uh, what I've been put through with these witchcrafts and spells and attempts at my life, uh, it happened for a reason. And it just didn't happen to me. It happened to many, 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 many spiritual readers and light workers. We are definitely under attack. I was the worst. The worst. Suitable for an emperor. Okay. Let me tell you. I broke another tooth, and this one is really bad because it looks like daggers, so it lacerates my tongue. So now I gotta go to the dentist, and now that things are calming down, other stuff that needed to be taken care of, which God put on hold. Thank you, Jesus. Now I gotta go and have these surgeries done, and get back on schedule before this horrible interruption. I tell you, doing an inventory and doing an introspection, it feels like I was in some nightmare bubble dreams. It was surreal. It came out of nowhere suddenly, and in an instant, everything has been brought back to balance. I was gonna do a series on the moon, but I wasn't gonna focus on the esoteric. There are certain mysteries of the moon that I'm not allowed to talk about. There's a reason why we have a space station. A space station. It looks like something out of Star Wars. I just smell a shit out here around here. That's the thing about these little rural countries and places. The irrigation system may be a little off. Um, See, what can I say? Ah, the moon. Lost my train of thought. Give me a second. It's a secret society kind of thing. There's certain mysteries that I'm not allowed to talk about. But you know what? maybe it was necessary to take that approach. Maybe it was necessary to take that approach back then. I would even say going back 100 years, that would put us in the 1930s. You couldn't discuss certain things like then that you can today. Even though it appears that we are living in a more flexible, open-minded world, the reality is, the reality is, we are more aware, but I think even more reserved than the 1930s. If I were to discuss astrology, the basics of astrology in 1930s, I would be frowned upon. Did you know that before 1933, if you were caught practicing astrology in New York City, it was considered illegal, against the law, and you can get arrested. It was in the judicial book. It was in the law books. It was astrology. The practice of astrology was illegal. There was a big murder case that took place, and it involved a federal judge. An astrologer and tarot reader was called to read on the case. The person was so accurate and pinpoint the judge and the family in the murder, so accurate that the judge had a change of heart and made astrology legal. From illegal, it became legal, but still a very covert practice. Many of the psychic gifts and psychic abilities, including those that I possess, that you hear many readers, tarot psychics, or people that are born with the gift, you know, they possess these special empathic skills, emotional sensitivity to pull and pick up and know, even to the point of reading someone's mind. All of these faculties are achieved because of the moon. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to give you two perspectives of the moon: the physicality of the moon, the its actual morphology, and then yeah, it's getting loose now. And then um, I can't even say that this is the mystical aspect of the moon. There is a mystical aspect of the moon, which is associated with magic. But there's also a mystical subdivision of the moon which deals with the esoteric. But then there's another aspect of the moon, and this is the part that is kind of frightening. And I had no idea of this truth concerning the moon. I'm talking about, decades ago. Even as a practicing astrologer, the moon is important. You cannot really have astrology or a birth chart without the moon. You can cast a horoscope just on the sun and the moon. If I was to do a birth chart reading, a real professional birth chart reading that costs about $2,000 to $3,000, it would take me at least 3 days, which is equivalent to about maybe 6 hours, 7 hours of information related just exclusively to the moon. I do say, right, that everything in life, our physical world, right? Our physical world, our physical world cannot be here, would not be here. It would not be here if it wasn't for the moon. Every solar system that we encounter, dealing with NASA, has not just one moon, but many moons. There isn't one planet that doesn't have a moon with it. Even within the solar system, with other planets, those planets have their own moons. Saturn has 67 moons. Jupiter, over 56 moons. And what's interesting about that is I don't think there's a single planet within a solar system that doesn't have a moon with it. Even Pluto, which is small, so small that planetary scientists almost demoted it to a dwarf planet or non-planet, despite the fact that it does have a lot of the characteristics that would define it, a planet. But even Pluto has moons, Dido and Io being two of them. And then there's planet Earth. Planet Earth has one moon. What's different about our moon relative to all the other planets in our solar system that have moons is that, number one, there's tons of them. Number two, these moons that are in Jupiter, Saturn, even Uranus, Neptune, these moons are far away. In circumference, these moons are far away. Really, bitch? The louder I speak, the louder the noise. None of these moons have their own light. That includes our moon. Yet, there was a time in our Earth's history where we did not have a moon. You really want to know what gave rise to the moon? You see, they're not telling us the full story of creation. They're not telling us the full story. Something just ain't adding up. I remember I went to deep prayer. And I asked God, what happened here? I used to ask God lots of questions. In history class, when we were learning about the dinosaurs, and I would go to the museum, and you see the big dinosaurs and the huge trees. And I used to, in science, and I went to good schools. I went to a good high school. I went to good private colleges. And I was a very big science guy. I never learned why the dinosaurs were so big, why the trees were so huge, why the cockroaches back in the day used to be huge. The ostrich, which buried its head in the ground, at one point had a short neck and short legs. Did you know that the penguin used to fly? The penguin doesn't fly anymore. The penguin hasn't flown in hundreds and hundreds or even thousands of years. But there was a point in the Earth's anthropological history where they fly. There was a time in the Earth's history where we had dragons. Dragons. I remember one of my past lives in Lemuria where I had a dragon and I used to ride a dragon, which is why I love dragon tattoos and dragon stuff. I used to ride them. And I know how they were created too. And that is outrageous. Outrageous. And the dragons are connected very closely to the Nephilim, the tall giants that were eating humans and eating plants and trees and animals to the point where they were depleting the earth and they had to be destroyed. The Nephilim were tall beings. And the method of transportation was the dragons. And that makes sense Because the dragons are huge. What human of an average height is going to ride that motherfucker? So it never made sense to me. But then when I found out about the Nephilim and the hybrid humanoids, this is how they got around. The dragons. And like the Nephilim, the dragons was a freak of nature that was created through, and it was a byproduct of many experiments of DNA tampering. Yes, that was still going on even back then. Nothing is new under the sun. You'll be in absolute shock at some of this information. I tell you, it's crazy. The Akasha records, by the way, you cannot access the Akasha records if you do not understand the mysteries of the moon. That makes sense because the moon rules memory, and the Akasha record is a record of the solar system's memory. Before it became a solar system, way beyond, even beyond the Big Bang and the divine spark, and way beyond the future, that which we do not know and cannot see that far into the future. All that was, all that is, and all that will be is in the Akasha record. And guess what is the keyhole to enter it? The moon. But like I mentioned, there's a magical aspect to the moon. Then there is an esoteric aspect to the moon. And then there's the mundane. You know, the moon is important when we're dealing with charts of other countries and nations and transits and ba 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 ba. It's like the moon is indispensable. Oh, I can't stand that smell. Oh, that manure. Oh, right here. You know. But let me tell you, you know how they say we ain't shit unless you got haters? Well, this planet Earth, ain't shit without the assistance and agency of the moon. Then, you know, going towards the mundane / esoteric aspect of the moon. There's another mystery about the moon that is associated or related to the Watchers. Mm-hmm. Here is where the information gets sensitive and a little dangerous because it's information that you should not know. Humans should not know this information about our moon. You know, I didn't think much of it. I said, what kind of mystery can it hold that's so disturbing for us not to be able to know? Inquiring minds will want to know, and I will want to know. Boy, I wish I could take that back.
Aquí o allá.
Aquí, doña.
Los tacos para la comida.
Sí, sí.
Gracias.
Let me tell you. Because once you are exposed to a certain knowledge, it ages you. Like Moses, who goes to Mount Sinai, a young man, well, not young, you know. Motherfucker comes back from Mount Sinai, an old man, crunched out with white hair and a fucking can. The staff became the cane. That motherfucking knowledge that made that man age like that is unbelievable. Otra más. Sí.
No va a rodar todavía.
Okay. You know what I'm saying? And this has happened to many figures, many prophets. Is this still going on today? Of course it is. Look at Barack Obama. He entered office 8 years ago, well, 10 years ago now. You know, young black man, you know, debonair, full set of black hair. And in 2 fucking years, the man's hair grew white. So, yeah, when you are put in a higher vibration and you are the leader of the richest, most powerful country on the planet, that's very close to approaching Mount Sinai and receiving anointing from the Elohim Adonai. No different. No different. One thing I gotta say though. What? I had to spit. And I didn't want to spit out there, and I didn't want to spit near the palm tree. One thing I gotta say about the moon. The moon is very demonic. It's demonic. You can't have a Ouija board. When you have a Ouija board, you notice that you have the sun and you got the moon here at its crescent. There was a time when the earth had no moon. And even then, humans existed. But they look nothing like we do today. When I finish my series on Lemuria, I will go into specific details. Because the moon came into existence at the end, at the tail end of the third period of the Polarian epoch, heading towards the Hyperborean epoch. Then after the Hyperborean epoch comes the rise of civilization as we know it today, when we entered the Lemurian epoch. True record keeping of the cosmos begins at the Polarian epoch. And man still existed even then, but as a germinal seed when Adam and Eve realized that they were naked and opened their eyes to consciousness, that occurred in the Lemurian epoch. The human story, or the beginning of the human story, the great soap opera, begins in the Lemurian epoch. But even then, humans did not look like we do today. Before Lemuria, before the Hyperborean, and before the Polarian epoch, man's evolution was not evolution. It was involution. Man was developing from within. And that took millions and millions and millions, if not hundreds of millions of years. And then man awoken to consciousness, an external reality different than the internal reality. And that's called evolution, moving outward, the awakening to consciousness. I'm going to break all those things down into specifics when I complete the Lemurian series, in which I go into detail. But in the Moon series, I will not be discussing that frame of reference. In the Moon series, I will be discussing magic, witchcraft, demonology, and all esoteric aspects of the moon. Why it's important, why it's associated this way, and what its specific history, independent of ours, and if it was at one point conjoined with our history, what made it separate into two separate life waves of evolution. Because going back to NASA and the space station, because I didn't forget, I'm doing a full circle. When man went to the moon, see, something happened. Neil Armstrong, and let me tell you, Neil Armstrong, which was the first man to be on the moon, I really don't think he was the first. I think he was the first to successfully complete the mission. A lot of people believe that man never went to the moon, that it was a hoax, that it was a lie. When they filmed Man on the Moon, and they put the flag of the United States on the moon, and it was waving, yo, were human beings that stupid even then? Or was the level of education so poor that man had no idea that the moon has no atmosphere? If there's no atmosphere, there's no wind. So what's blowing that fucking flag? And so perfectly too. Not flapping, but like he does. Yeah, not perfect. When I saw that, I laughed so hard, and then I felt kind of sad. That humanity is so ignorant, and not because we're naturally ignorant, we're made to be ignorant. The government decides what it's going to teach us in our schools, what we're going to eat, how we're going to learn, how we're going to comport ourselves. Man-made laws. I don't believe that we landed on the moon when we said we did. It was a competition because Russia, I think it was Sputnik, already had satellites in the moon, around the moon, if not on the moon, and it made the United States jealous because they got there before we did. So it became a race of competition. And you know what they say? History belongs to the winner. And Russia at the time was the evil empire as defined by Ronald Reagan. The Cold War. So, we did not look at Russia in a good light. And although Russia was very advanced, we were jealous and we did not want to admit that. So I think we fooled the American people into believing that we got there and we did this. We did it. But, like with any great lie, if you want to keep it going, you got to sustain it. You got to make other lies to create or sustain the original lie that you did. I don't believe the United States had intentions of not going to the moon. They just needed more time to get the technology to get there before Russians. But the Russians beat us there anyway. I do believe that eventually, through Neil Armstrong, we got to the moon. It's very interesting that we only went there once. So many scientists are so crazed about colonizing Mars. Yet Mars is over 3.5 years away from us. To get to Mars will take about 3.5 years. At the least, depending on its orbit. If it's far out of the sun, because we're right here, then that's years to get there. But if it's closer in orbit to the Earth, closer here, it takes shorter. But even then, it's still years. Do you know how much money it'll cost us to get to fucking Mars? Let me tell you something. Let me give you a perspective. Do you know why wars cost so much money? Millions to hundreds of millions to billions of dollars. That's why when you go to war, it's good business for a nation. This country has made its empire through wars. But we're not fighting left and right like before, but we just manipulate behind the scenes and still get a dividend. Let's leave that alone for a minute. I'll put it to you like this. When we went to China, when we fought China, this was back. You know what? I was going towards the Pluto period. Let me not remember. Let me go back to no. Let's say we're going to China or Japan when they attacked us and bombed Pearl Harbor. And we retaliated by bombing Hiroshima, Japan. And then we took our Navy fleet and headed to Japan to finish the country off, right? Do you know how much money it costs to fill the tank of one aircraft carrier? You know, the big ship, big, long, large. You have 400 men in them motherfuckers. And you got planes on top of them, helicopters. That alone can run you in the millions. That alone, equipment, but forget all that. To fill that bitch of a tank, to fuel that aircraft carrier, to go to Japan. Do you know how long it takes to get there? 3 to 5 months to get there. Do you know how much crude oil is needed to get that aircraft carrier from our decks of our American harbors to that of Japan? Do you know how much money it costs? Think of your car and your tank. Leaded, super unleaded, 375, 373, 379. Some people will drive a quarter mile to pay for $373.73 versus paying for $3.79, which is 3 pennies higher. It adds up, it makes a difference. You might be spending $20 to fill a tank. If you drive a lot, that time might last you maybe 2-3 days. You gotta spend another $20. If it's unleaded, super unleaded, it makes a difference. So now imagine yourself driving an aircraft carrier, a destroyer. Do you know how much money it costs to fuel that bitch? For the 5 months to get to Japan? $5.3 million in gas fuel. One aircraft carrier. Imagine a fleet. Just to give you a sense of perspective, why war is so expensive. It takes months to get to the other side of the planet. And millions of dollars in gas, fuel, crude oil to get there. So to spend all this potential money to go to Mars, which is so further out in our solar system than the moon, didn't make sense to me. Why can't we go to the fucking moon? It's right there. You know, it only takes maybe 2 or 3 months to get there. It's right there. Do you know how much money it costs to send the Cassini spacecraft to Pluto, to Uranus, which takes years to get there and years to come back with data? Do you know how much money that costs? The moon is right there. I'll never forget when the state of address in the 1960s, and I forgot who the president was. Hoover? It wasn't Carter. No, Carter came after. I forgot who it was. Ayer, un pelotero parece. Chulería en poste. ¿Cómo estamos? Tranquilo, ahí muy bien. ¿Está bien? A cogerla. Sí. Understand that it's much cheaper to go to the moon. I went to this bus pass by. Hold on. all these noises, all that is the moon. The moon rules a lot of stuff, let me tell you. Why can't we go to the fucking moon? Why we gotta talk about Mars? All of a sudden, the conversation became about Mars. People forgot about the moon. No, I'm gonna tell you what happened, and then we're gonna close, and I'm gonna do another part 2. But I have to tell you, the United States, through NASA, and I believe that the head of the CIA and the astronautics and weapons division was run over by George Bush Sr., who was the head of the CIA. The United States made a declaration that no other nation is to return to the moon. Now, how dare we dictate what another country should do or not do? But even Russia, who remember, at the height of the Cold War, bitter enemies to the United States, even Russia came into a consensus with the United States because they were the two superpowers with the money to be able to go to the moon. All these other countries were third world countries, emerging or developing countries, and they didn't have that money. They had to think about food at the table and running the country efficiently, let alone thinking lofty of putting man up in the moon. And no money for that. No other country since 1965 has gone back to the moon. Forbidden to go back to the moon. It was then that the United States decided to build a space station. Because, and you have to see the space station they got up there. It's not on the moon, but it's close to the moon. But it's not on the moon, and it's not in its orbital path either. The money that they spent in creating this space station, they could have saved all that money had they gone to the moon. The reason why they created a space station is because they were not allowed to work on the surface of the moon. Why? The Archons that live there. Now, when I come back, I'm going to discuss in more detail who or what these Archons are. Witchcraft and demonic spells. Guess who makes it happen? The Archons of the moon. When I do moon magic, immediately they come to me. What do you want? What do you need? There are beings that are living there. And they don't like us. They are hostile to humans. And they told us, do not come back here. You stay over there. We stay over here. Do not, we were threatened. They said, do not come back here. So we could not go back. But there's a reason. And I'm going to tell you what that reason is. Guys, please donate. As for a birth chart or as for a reading, donate at the People's Astro through PayPal until I locate another bank. Okay? And of course, you can always send monetary gifts through the mail, FedEx. You know, I have to give me a P.O. box, I guess, right? You know, someone might send me a fucking bomb. Shit, yeah, when you got two hitmen, you know, try to get a gun in your head, damn. You know, you gotta be careful nowadays. What's in the package? Oh, wait, look. Yeah. This moon series is gonna be special.